So today we're going to look at some amazing astronauts and the things that they have to do to be able to become an astronaut. So an astronaut is someone, as you know, who is trained to travel into space in a spacecraft, and they live in space and they carry out lots and lots of different scientific experiments. Did you know, if we click this, it'll tell us, the term astronaut actually means sailor among the stars. So it's a good fact to know. It takes several years to train to become an astronaut. In this time, astronauts have to learn about science, space, technology, and how the International Space Station works. They also have to be trained at a basic medical level on medical care. They have to learn how to scuba dive, and they have to learn how to speak Russian. I think that'd be quite tricky, wouldn't it? This is Tim Peake, and there'll be another video about him as well. Tim Peake is a British astronaut. He's from here, and he's actually from not far down the road in Chichester. And he lived and worked on the International Space Station from December 2015 all the way until June 2016. So for quite a long time. See if you can work out how many months that was. Where do astronauts live in space? Astronauts live in the International Space Station. It looks a bit like this. This is a drawing of it. It's a large spacecraft and laboratory that orbits the Earth, which means that it goes round the Earth all the time. And actually on some good nights outside, if it's not too cloudy and it's quite clear outside, you can just about see it. It looks like a bit like a shooting star. You can see it going over the top of the sky. It's used for carrying out research on the effect of living and working in space. And it's called the ISS for short, the International Space Station. And the ISS is made up of different parts called modules, so it's got different sections. These are where the astronauts sleep, live, and they carry out their experiments. We've got another did you know here. Did you know the ISS travels around the Earth at 27,700 kilometres an hour? So it's going really, really super fast. It completes 16 orbits of the Earth in one day. So it's going really, really quick, isn't it? It travels about 350 kilometres above the Earth, so it's quite a way above us. And it's big enough to cover a football playing field. So that's how big, if you laid out the International Space Station on the ground, that is how big it would be. What do astronauts wear? So when an astronaut goes on a spacewalk, which means that they come out of the International Space Station, they do work on the outside, which looks very, very scary. If you have a little look on YouTube, there's some videos of it. They need to wear a protective spacesuit. So we'll click the question marks for an interesting fact. So here we've got, they have a camera on their helmet, which is used to send pictures back to us on Earth, back to the scientific labs, the laboratories. Oh. Here we've got their helmet. The visor protects the astronauts' eyes from the strong rays of the sun. So definitely need that, don't they? They wear gloves. They have a good grip. Astronauts need to train to carry out tricky tasks with these thick gloves on. So they've got them on all the time and they help them to stick to what they're holding onto on the International Space Station. They have a display and control module, which is on the front of their suit. It's a bit like a tabard on the front there. The astronaut can control the spacesuit using the switches on it. It's very clever, isn't it? They have their primary support system. So on the back of their suit, they have to carry their oxygen because they've got to be able to breathe, haven't they, when they're out of the International Space Station. So it carries their oxygen so that the astronaut can breathe. And water is also carried in this pack because they're out there for quite a long time sometimes. They might get a bit thirsty. They have a radio so they can talk to other astronauts and mission control. Mission control are back on Earth, so they're just checking that everything's okay. The astronauts are okay, they're not in danger or anything. And obviously their spacesuit. So it keeps the astronaut's body at the right temperature. They don't get too hot or too cold. It can get very hot or very cold in space, so they have to try and maintain their temperature in their suit. It's very, very clever, isn't it? Do astronauts sleep in space? Sleeping on board the ISS is a bit different for astronauts than it is for you at home. And actually we've watched some videos of them sleeping up in space, and they're quite funny actually, so have a little watch on YouTube if you can. Zero gravity means that the astronauts float around in the International Space Station, so they need to sleep in a sleeping bag that they attach to the wall or the ceiling so that they don't float away and bump into everything. So they have to zip themselves into their sleeping bag and they sleep like this so that they don't just float away. It's very clever, isn't it? And crew members also have their own little cabins to sleep in as well, so they don't sleep together, they all sleep in their own little cabin. And there's a picture here for you of one of the astronauts trying to have a little sleep in space. So you can see he's lying what we would think is possibly the wrong way up, isn't he? Because that's the top there. I don't know if that will work. So what do astronauts eat and drink? Astronauts can eat lots of the same foods that we eat at home, but the way that they're packaged has to be very, very different. And again, we watched some videos the other week of an astronaut trying to have a drink in space, and they have to have it in a pouch with a straw, because if it had a lid and you just unscrewed the lid, it's very strange, but the water just floats out. So even when they squeezed the pouch, it came out the end of the straw, and water droplets just floated around the International Space Station. So they don't want crumbs everywhere, and they don't want liquids anywhere in the International Space Station, so they have to have it in a special package. It's normally packaged in something called aluminium foil, or it's in a can. And astronauts might need to add water to their food if it's freeze dried. So they have to add water to it, give it a mix before they can then eat it. Astronauts get to choose their favourite foods before they go into space. So have a think, what would your favourite food be if you went into space? This might include frozen meals, frozen vegetables, desserts, as well as stuff that you put in a fridge like dairy products, could be yogurts, could be or ice cream. And they're provided with snacks, and they even have ketchup. It's good, isn't it, to add to different meals? So there they are, look. You can see that their apples and tomatoes are floating around in space, but they're all sat having their favourite snacks. How do astronauts go to the toilet in space? That's a good question, isn't it? So we've got here a little toilet here, and these actually won't work on here. Watch the video. If you have a look on YouTube, Tim Peake actually explains to you how they go to the toilet in space. So, lots of space facts for you there. I wonder if you could put them into a fact file for us to see over here. Good luck and enjoy.